The battlefield was silent. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of death. Smoke rose into the cold alien sky. Wrecked ships burned. Fallen soldiers, both human and alien, lay scattered across the ruined valley. The war between humanity and the Empire had left another scar on another distant world. Through the ash and broken steel walked a single human soldier. His armor was cracked, his rifle empty, but he moved with caution. The warship that had dropped him here was gone. The fleet had retreated. He was alone, stranded, and surrounded by destruction. He should have been searching for water or a signal beacon or any sign of survivors. Instead, something else caught his attention. A sound, faint, weak, not the cry of a man, not the groan of a dying machine. It was a whimper. The soldier froze. He raised his rifle, scanning the shadows. The sound came again. A cry, high-pitched, filled with fear. He followed it through the wreckage, stepping over twisted armor plates and the shattered body of an alien war beast. At last, he found it. There, hidden beneath the broken wing of a fallen gunship, was a small creature. Black fur, sharp fangs, glowing yellow eyes. A cub, a youngling of the Velkar. The Velkar were predators. Every species in the galaxy feared them. Long ago, their fleets had burned worlds. They had fought humanity too, and though the war had ended, the wounds never healed. The cub was their enemy. The soldier knew the laws of war. A Velkar cub was a future killer. If the Galactic Council learned that a human soldier had found such a creature, they would demand its execution. Every order said to eliminate threats before they grew, yet the soldier did not fire. He lowered his rifle slowly. The cub stared at him, chest rising and falling with each shaky breath. Blood stained its fur. It was starving, injured, alone. It should have hissed and lunged at him. Instead, it whimpered again, reaching out with one trembling paw. The soldier remembered another sound, far away on Earth. His daughter's cry when she was small. A helpless sound, a sound that called for protection. He could not walk away. He pulled the broken wing aside, lifted the cub into his arms, and felt the weight of his decision. He whispered, "You should be my enemy." But not today. The cub buried its face against his armor, too weak to resist. The soldier carried it through the ruins, searching for shelter. The night grew colder, and the sky burned with distant fire from orbit. Somewhere above, fleets clashed. Humanity's warships against the Empire's dreadnoughts. Earth's fate was always decided in the stars. But down here, a different battle was being fought. A battle of choice. Days passed. The soldier built a camp. He found food, purified water, treated wounds. The cub grew stronger. It learned his voice, his scent, the way he moved. At first it snapped and growled, but hunger always brought it back. Soon it followed him like a shadow. The soldier taught it simple commands. Stay, wait, come. The cub listened. Slowly its growl softened, its eyes less filled with rage. It began to trust, and something impossible happened. He began to trust it too. At night he would look at the stars and wonder, what would the Galactic Council say if they knew? What would his own commanders do if they saw this predator lying beside a human soldier, sleeping like a child? He had no answer, but he could feel something. This cub was changing. It was learning humanity's ways. Its fangs were sharp, its body built for killing, but it was also learning kindness, loyalty, and restraint. Qualities the Velkar had never known. The soldier whispered to it often. "You are not a monster. You are family now." Months later, a human patrol ship finally returned to the battlefield. They found the soldier alive. They found the cub too, standing beside him. Its glowing eyes watched them with a mix of curiosity and defiance. The commanding officer demanded an explanation. "That is Velkar spawn. Why have you not destroyed it?" The soldier stood firm. "Because it is mine. Because humanity does not kill children," the officer argued. The rules were clear. But the cub snarled, stepping protectively in front of its human. And for the first time, the human saw something strange in the creature. Not just hunger, not just instinct, loyalty. The officer hesitated. He had no orders for this. No one did. In the end, they brought both soldier and cub back to Earth. The news spread quickly. A human soldier had raised a predator cub. The Velkar were not extinct. Worse, they were being taught human ways. The Galactic Council demanded answers. Ambassadors argued in panic. In the council chambers, alien voices rose in terror. If humans can tame predators, what else can they do? If they raise this cub, what will it become? Their fears only grew when a new signal came in. A recording from Earth. The predator cub, now larger, training beside human soldiers. And then the sound, a roar, a true Velkar roar shaking the skies above Earth. The council fell silent. Faces turned pale. The message was clear. Humanity had not just raised a cub. They had raised a future predator, stronger than before, and loyal to humans. The Empire demanded an emergency meeting. The council chambers echoed with one word: fear. The Galactic Council Chamber was a place of power. It floated in orbit above a neutral star, built as a ring of crystal towers that glowed with alien light. Delegates from 100 species gathered here. They argued about trade, war, and law, but today their voices carried only one tone: fear. At the center of the chamber, a massive screen flickered alive. A signal from Earth. The sound filled the air, shaking the walls. The roar of the Velkar delegates froze. Some covered their ears, others trembled. That sound had haunted their ancestors. Entire civilizations had once fallen to the Velkar. That roar was not just noise. It was memory. It was terror. The recording played again. This time it showed more. A human training field. Rows of soldiers in powered armor drilling with precision. And among them, the predator cub. No longer small. Taller, stronger, its muscles clear under the armor plate. It moved with speed. It fought in silence. When commanded, it roared again. The chamber erupted. Alien voices shouted in panic. Impossible. The Velkar were destroyed. This is blasphemy. Humanity has raised a monster. They must hand it over to the council at once. One ambassador, his scaled skin trembling, pointed at the screen. Do you not see? This is worse than war. This is change. Humanity has taken a predator and made it their ally. Who will stop them when they tame others? The council chair, a tall figure of pale light, slammed a staff against the floor. The room quieted. Delegates, control yourselves. We will hear reports before judgment. The human ambassador rose. He was calm, his voice steady, though eyes from every side burned into him. What you see is not a weapon. It is a child we saved. A cub that would have died on the battlefield. We gave it food. We gave it shelter. We gave it family. Is compassion now a crime? Laughter burst from the Empire's representative. His voice dripped with venom. Compassion? You have raised the spawn of your greatest enemy. Do you expect us to believe it will not one day sink its teeth into your throat? Or ours? The human's reply was sharp. We do not kill children. That is the difference between humanity and monsters. The chamber shook with new arguments. Some species supported the human words. Others called for immediate destruction. The debate raged louder with each passing minute. While the council argued on Earth, the cub continued to grow. It trained with human soldiers, learned human tactics, even sparred with human officers. Its claws tore through practice drones with frightening power, yet it obeyed every command. The soldiers began to respect it. Some even called it brother. Still, shadows gathered. Not all humans approved. Some whispered that raising a predator was too dangerous. Others feared that one day it would betray them. And far away in the depths of space, eyes were watching. The Empire had spies on Earth, small drones hidden in orbit, silent recorders in the dark. They watched the cub spar, eat, train, and sleep. They captured every roar, every step, every bond it shared with humans. One night, under the pale light of Earth's moon, the cub stood alone. It looked up at the stars and unleashed a roar that echoed across valleys. The sound was recorded, transmitted, and carried across the void straight to the Empire. In the council chamber, the Empire's representative received the footage first. He rose, voice full of triumph. Behold the truth. The predator grows strong. Humanity has not created a child. They have created a weapon that will be turned against us all. He pointed at the human ambassador, eyes blazing with hatred. We demand the Cub's execution. If you refuse, then humanity itself will stand guilty. And the Empire does not forgive. Silence followed. No one spoke. Every delegate felt the weight of those words. The air was thick with tension. The council chair looked at the human ambassador, then at the gathered voices. This decision cannot be delayed, the chair said. The safety of the galaxy may depend on it. The human ambassador clenched his fists. He knew what was coming. The council would try to take the Cub. They would not understand that it was more than Predator, more than Velkar. They would never understand what it meant to be raised by humanity. But before a vote could be cast, alarms sounded in the chamber. Red lights flashed. A messenger drone flew into the center, broadcasting an urgent signal. The screen filled with a single terrifying image. Empire warships, dozens of them, colossal dreadnoughts, and behind them a super carrier the size of a continent. They had jumped into the edge of Earth's system. The chamber erupted again, panic, shouting, fear. The Empire was not waiting for votes or diplomacy. Their fleets were already moving. The council chair slammed the staff once more, but his voice was drowned out by chaos. The human ambassador's heart sank as he watched the image of those warships on the screen. The Cub was still on Earth. The Empire was coming for it. The council chamber had never been so tense. The air felt heavy, as if the weight of entire worlds pressed against the walls. Delegates shifted in their seats, whispering in fear. On the main screen, the face of the Emperor appeared. His features were sharp, carved with cold authority. His golden armor reflected the light of 100 systems he ruled. His voice was calm, but every word carried the force of command. The Predator must die, or humanity will burn. The words rolled through the chamber like thunder. Every species fell silent. The Emperor continued, "You have raised a Velkar. You have raised our ancient enemy. Do you know what this means? That Cub will grow into a monster, a beast of war, one that even you humans cannot control. If you do not destroy it now, the Empire will destroy you with it." The human ambassador rose to his feet. His jaw was set, his voice steady. "We will not kill a child. We gave it life. We gave it family. That Cub belongs to us now. If the Empire threatens humanity for showing mercy, then you reveal the truth. You are afraid of what humanity can become." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Do not mistake mercy for strength, human. You have invited doom into your home. If you will not remove it, then we will. And when we do, your fleets, your armies, even your Earth itself will fall." Gasps filled the chamber. The Empire had spoken not in diplomacy, but in open threat. The delegates argued again, but their voices were weak. No one dared oppose the Emperor openly. Back on Earth, the Cub trained harder each day. It had grown taller, stronger, faster. Human instructors watched as it fought against mechanical drones. Its claws tore through steel. Its roar shook the training ground. But when the soldier who had raised it gave a command, the Cub obeyed instantly. Loyalty burned in its glowing eyes. One night the Cub overheard whispers, human officers debating in hushed voices. Some wanted to keep it hidden. Others feared the Empire's wrath. One even said, "We should have ended it long ago." The Cub lowered its head. For the first time, doubt cut into its heart. It walked into the darkness of the forest near the training camp and sat alone. It thought of the Emperor's words, of the Council's fear, of the humans who doubted it. Was it truly only a weapon? Was it a curse? Then the soldier who had saved it found him. He sat beside the Cub, silent for a while. Finally, he said, "You are not their fear. You are my family. No matter what they say." The Cub looked at him. Its fangs gleamed in the moonlight, but its eyes were wet. "Then I will fight for you," it whispered. Its voice was rough, low, but filled with certainty. The next day, reports reached Earth. The Council had failed to agree. Some sided with the Empire, others defended humanity. But the Emperor did not wait for votes. His fleets had already crossed into human space. In orbit above Earth, alarms blared. Commanders shouted orders. Humanity's fleets launched from the lunar docks. Giant warships lit their drives, engines roaring across the void. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, carriers, all moving into defensive lines. In the council chamber, panic broke into fury. Ambassadors begged the chair to stop the war, but it was too late. The Empire's supercarrier had entered the Sol system. The Emperor's voice rang out again, this time across all frequencies, reaching even the streets of Earth. People of humanity, deliver the Predator to us within one cycle. Refuse, and your world will burn. The human ambassador slammed his fist on the table. We will not bow. We will not betray our own. The cub stood in the training yard as soldiers prepared for war. It clenched its claws, eyes burning. It had made its choice. It would fight for the humans who had raised it, but far away, the Empire's fleet grew closer. Dreadnoughts armed with planet-killer weapons, legions of soldiers bred for conquest. The Council whispered in terror, some already preparing to abandon humanity. The storm was coming. Humanity would soon face the might of the Empire. And when the first flashes of light appeared on the edge of Earth's skies, every soldier knew the Empire had arrived. The night sky over Earth lit up with fire. Civilian eyes looked upward in horror as streaks of light appeared among the stars. It was not falling meteors. It was the arrival of an enemy fleet. Empire warships emerged from the void, colossal shadows against the sun. Their hulls bristled with weapons, each cannon larger than a skyscraper. At their center hung the supercarrier, a floating fortress so massive it blotted out the stars. A single broadcast thundered across all human channels. A voice deep and merciless, deliver the Predator. Refuse and Earth will perish. On Earth's surface, alarms screamed in every city. Families fled to shelters. The sky over the oceans swarmed with human warships, rising like steel giants from hidden docks. From the moon, dreadnoughts launched with blazing drives. Humanity had prepared for war. Admiral Reyes stood on the command deck of the flagship Indomitable. The bridge glowed with red warning lights. Around him, officers barked reports. Enemy fleet size, 70 warships. Dreadnought class confirmed. Supercarrier on approach. Reyes gave only one order. Form the wall. Earth must hold. The fleets met above the orbit of Mars. Thousands of kilometers apart, their weapons came alive. The first strike came from the Empire. A wave of plasma lances shot across the void, ripping through human picket ships. Explosions painted the stars red. Fragments of metal spiraled into silence, but humanity answered. Missile salvos fired from the lunar fleet, hundreds of warheads streaking toward the enemy. Some were destroyed by shields, but others broke through, slamming into enemy cruisers. Flames erupted in the dark. The battle had begun. On Earth, soldiers prepared for the unthinkable. Dropships full of enemy boarding troops were already burning toward the atmosphere. Cities braced for impact. The Predator Cub stood among human warriors at the launch base, armored plates covering its growing frame. Its claws gleamed like blades. A sergeant looked at it nervously. You sure this thing's on our side? The soldier who had raised it answered firmly. He is not a thing. He is one of us. Moments later, the base shook. Enemy dropships slammed into the ground. Alien shock troops poured out, armored in black, weapons blazing. The Cub roared, shaking the walls, then leapt into battle. It tore through the first enemy squad with terrifying speed. Claws shredded armor, fangs crushed helmets. Yet it fought not with wild rage, but with discipline. Human soldiers advanced behind it, using its strikes as cover. For every enemy that fell to the Cub, 2 more were cut down by human rifles. Above the planet, the war grew worse. Human dreadnoughts clashed with Empire Leviathans. The Indomitable rammed a cruiser head-on, splitting its hull before detonating broadside cannons. Empire boarding ships latched onto human carriers, spilling thousands of warriors into brutal close combat. The Council watched the battle from a distant relay. Delegates gasped as the screens filled with fire and death. Some whispered prayers. Others declared humanity doomed. The Empire's fleet seemed unstoppable. Back on Earth, the Cub ripped the last invader apart, its roar echoing across the battlefield. Human soldiers cheered, but their celebration was brief. A shadow swept across the ground. They looked up. The Empire's superweapon was charging. From the supercarrier's hull unfolded a cannon the size of a mountain, its core glowing crimson. It was aimed not at a fleet, but at Earth itself. The cub froze, eyes wide. Soldiers shouted in panic. The cannon's glow grew brighter, ready to fire. On the Indomitable, Admiral Reyes saw it too. His voice cut through the chaos. "All ships, fire everything you have at that cannon." Hundreds of missiles, plasma beams, and railgun rounds streaked toward the weapon. But the supercarrier's shields flared, absorbing the storm. The cannon kept charging, growing brighter until it looked like a new sun above the planet. The human soldier who had raised the cub grabbed its shoulder. His voice was urgent. "You hear me? That cannon will wipe out Earth. If it fires, we lose everything." The cub's chest rose and fell with deep breaths. Its claws dug into the ground. It stared at the glowing weapon in the sky, and for the first time, fear filled its predator's heart. The crimson light reached its peak. The weapon was ready to fire. Earth itself was in its sights. The crimson glow filled the heavens. The Empire's superweapon loomed above Earth, its vast cannon aimed at the planet's heart. Every screen across the world showed it, a sun of death waiting to fire. Families in bunkers prayed. Soldiers on the front lines clenched their rifles. Humanity had seconds left. On the training field outside the base, the cub stood frozen. Its yellow eyes reflected the glow. Inside its chest, fear battled against fury. The soldier who had raised him gripped his arm. "You don't have to be what they say. You can be more. This is your choice." The cub looked at him. For years, humans had fed him, trained him, treated him as family. Yet the Empire's words echoed in his head. Predator, monster, weapon, was that all he was? A tool of destruction? The ground shook as enemy dropships crashed nearby. More alien troops poured out, firing beams into the camp. Human soldiers scrambled to respond, but all eyes kept drifting upward toward the glowing cannon. The cub's claws flexed, his breathing deepened. His voice came out in a low growl. "Not my home, not my family, never!" He tore free from the soldier's grasp and sprinted toward the nearest hangar. Mechanics shouted in shock as he leapt into a human dropship. His claws sliced through the controls, forcing the engines to life. The small craft roared into the sky, breaking through the atmosphere. "Cub, what are you doing?" The soldier's voice crackled over comms. The cub bared his fangs, but his eyes burned with determination, stopping them. Above, the battle was chaos. Human fleets and Empire dreadnoughts locked in brutal combat. Explosions tore holes in the void. Wreckage drifted like broken bones. Through it all, the cub's stolen dropship weaved, dodging fire, climbing toward the impossible target, the Empire's supercarrier. Enemy fighters swarmed. Dozens of sleek interceptors turned their guns on the tiny craft. Plasma fire raked the hull. Metal burned, alarms screamed, but the cub refused to turn back. His claws gripped the controls like a predator clutching prey. From the Indomitable, Admiral Reyes saw the craft on sensors. His eyes widened. "Whoever's flying that ship is insane. They're going straight into the cannon housing." The cub's voice cut into the channel. "I am not insane. I am Velkar." Raised by humanity, every officer on the bridge froze. Then silence gave way to awe. Humanity's predator was not fleeing. He was charging. The dropship slammed into the supercarrier's hangar, tearing through the force barrier in a storm of fire. The cub leapt from the cockpit, claws flashing, armor scorched. Empire guards rushed forward. They outnumbered him 10 to 1. He did not care. He struck like lightning. Claws sliced through rifles. Jaws crushed helmets. Every move was brutal, but every strike was controlled. He was not a beast killing for hunger. He was a warrior fighting for family. Step by step, he forced his way deeper into the weapon housing. The glow of the cannon filled the corridor, humming with deadly power. He could feel the energy shaking the deck beneath his feet. At the heart of the chamber stood the core, a massive sphere of pulsing crimson energy guarded by elite Empire soldiers. The cub roared, the sound echoing through the chamber. The guards fired, beams of light searing the air. But the cub dove among them, claws flashing, tearing through armor with ferocity. One by one they fell. But the cub was bleeding, his armor cracked, his body slowing. Still, he pushed forward until his claws dug into the weapon core itself. Sparks erupted. The chamber shook violently. On Earth, people watching the battle saw the cannon's glow begin to stutter. Hope flickered for the first time. On the Indomitable, Admiral Reyes slammed his fist on the console. He's doing it. He's actually doing it. The core screamed as its energy destabilized. The Cub howled, forcing his claws deeper. The superweapon began to overload. Warning sirens echoed across the Empire's supercarrier. Their commanders shouted orders to abandon the chamber, but it was too late. A blinding explosion tore through space. The superweapon's glow vanished in a storm of fire and debris. The cannon was gone. Earth was saved. For a moment, humanity cheered. Soldiers raised their weapons. Civilians shouted in joy. The Council, watching from afar, stared in disbelief. Humanity's predator had done the impossible, but then silence. No signal from the dropship. No signal from the Cub. The explosion had consumed everything. On Earth, the soldier who had raised him fell to his knees, staring at the sky. No, not like this. Admiral Reyes scanned the wreckage, but the comms were empty. Only drifting debris answered. The Cub had vanished into the void, and in the council chamber, the Empire's representative rose, fury blazing in his eyes. The Predator still lives, I know it, and when we find him, humanity will pay. The battlefield in orbit was silent now. Wreckage of ships drifted like ghosts. Earth had survived, but the cost was heavy. Human fleets were torn apart, and countless soldiers were gone. Yet one loss weighed heavier than all the rest. The Predator Cub, humanity called him hero. He had destroyed the Empire's superweapon. His roar had saved Earth. But his signal was gone, his dropship lost in the explosion. Most believed he was dead. The soldier who had raised him did not believe it. He felt it in his bones. The Cub was alive, and far away, in the black cells of an Empire prison ship, he was right. The Cub awoke in chains. Shackles of alien steel bound his arms and legs, heavy enough to restrain even a predator. Around him, the walls pulsed with faint light, built from materials designed to suppress strength. Guards stood outside, armed with shock lances. An officer of the Empire entered, cloaked in crimson. His eyes glowed with hate. So this is what humanity has made. A monster that obeys them. Disgusting. The Cub bared his fangs, but pain shot through him as the shackles tightened, flooding his body with electricity. He roared, the sound echoing through the chamber, but it was cut short by the surge of energy. The officer leaned close. You will break, you will serve. And then, when the time is right, you will kill the humans you claim as family. The Cub spat blood. His voice came low and steady. Family is not blood. Family is choice. I chose humanity. The officer struck him across the face, but the Cub did not flinch. For days, the torture continued. They starved him, shocked him, chained him in darkness. Yet every time they demanded his loyalty, his answer was the same. I am Velkar, raised by humanity. The guards whispered among themselves. They had never seen such defiance. A predator was supposed to be ruthless, selfish, untamed. But this one carried something different, honor, loyalty. The humans had changed it. And that frightened them more than its claws. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity mourned. Monuments were raised for the fallen. Songs were sung of the Cub's sacrifice. Children played games pretending to be the predator that had saved their world. To the people, he had become legend. But in secret, a handful of human commanders planned something bold. They had intercepted a signal from deep space, a fragment of a roar. It was faint, distorted, but real. The Cub lived. The soldier who had found him on the battlefield slammed his fist on the table. Then we bring him home. Admiral Reyes hesitated. The Empire will never allow it. Their fleets still outnumber ours 3-1. A rescue mission could trigger a full war. The soldier leaned forward. His voice was iron. We are already at war. And he is one of us. We do not leave our own behind. Silence filled the room. Finally, Reyes nodded. Then we will find him. But this must be done in secret. If the Council learns of it, they will betray us to save themselves. Preparations began. Black Ops teams trained in silence. New stealth ships were prepared in hidden hangars. Humanity was planning not just survival, but defiance. Back in the prison ship, the cub grew weaker. His body was scarred, his voice rough, yet his spirit would not bend. One night a guard entered, younger than the rest. He looked at the cub through the bars. His voice trembled. "Why do you resist? The Empire offers you power. You could rule worlds. Why suffer for them? For humans." The cub lifted his head slowly. His eyes glowed faint but unbroken. "Because they saw me as more than a beast. They gave me a name. They gave me home. That is power greater than your empire will ever know." The young guard stepped back, shaken. He had no answer. Days later, the Empire announced a new decree. Across the galaxy, the news spread like fire. The Predator would be executed, not in secret, not in silence, but publicly before billions. His death would be a warning to all. Never side with humanity. Never trust them. Never defy the Empire. On Earth, people watched the broadcast with horror. Children cried. Soldiers clenched their fists. The soldier who had raised him swore an oath. "If they try to kill him, I will tear down the galaxy to stop it." Admiral Reyes looked at the signal and gave a single order. "Then our mission begins. We strike at the heart of the Empire." The prison ship changed course. Its destination was announced to all, the Emperor's throne world. The cub would die in chains before the eyes of the galaxy, but humanity had other plans. The Emperor's throne world was a jewel of black stone and burning skies. Its capital city stretched across continents, built not for beauty, but for fear. At its center rose the arena of judgment, a colossal ring of steel where the Empire staged its most brutal trials. On this day, billions across the galaxy watched the live broadcast. Screens flickered in markets, war camps, and distant colonies. Every eye turned toward the arena. They had come to witness the execution of the Predator raised by humanity. Inside the arena, the cub was dragged forward in chains, shackles dug into his wrists, his armor stripped away, his body scarred from weeks of torture. Yet when the guards shoved him onto the sand, he did not bow. He stood tall, eyes burning with defiance. The crowd roared with hatred. Alien voices shouted for blood. The Emperor himself appeared high above, seated on a throne of iron. His voice thundered across the arena. "This beast is no hero. It is no child. It is a predator trained by humanity to be their weapon. Today, before the eyes of the galaxy, it will die. Let all who would side with humanity see their fate." The cub's voice carried back, low and fierce. "I am Velkar, but I was raised by humanity. I fight not as your beast, but as their son." The crowd fell into stunned silence. Billions watching across the galaxy whispered in disbelief. A predator speaking words of loyalty. A predator choosing humans over its own kind. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Then you will die with their name on your tongue." Guards brought forth the executioner, a towering warrior in spiked armor, wielding an axe that had ended kings. The crowd cheered again, the sound shaking the arena walls. But in the shadows beneath the Colosseum, humanity was already moving. Black Ops teams, clad in stealth armor, infiltrated the underlevels. Saboteurs cut power lines. Hackers cracked security doors. Every step brought them closer to the surface. The soldier who had raised the cub led the way, his rifle steady, his heart pounding. On the arena floor, the executioner advanced. The cub spread his claws, chains clinking. He was weak, bloodied, but his spirit burned bright. He did not kneel. He did not beg. He stood tall, a warrior to the last. The executioner raised the axe high. The Emperor's voice boomed. "End this farce," the cub roared. The sound shook the stands, echoing into every broadcast. It was not the roar of a beast, but the roar of defiance. The arena trembled. Some in the crowd gasped. A few even cheered. The axe fell, and explosions ripped through the arena gates. Human strike teams burst onto the sands, rifles blazing. Soldiers shouted in unison, "For Earth!" The crowd erupted in chaos. Civilians screamed. Guards scrambled. The Emperor rose from his throne, his face twisted with fury. The executioner staggered back, blinded by the blast. Before he could strike again, a human soldier leapt between him and the cub. It was the same soldier who had found him on the battlefield long ago. Their eyes met, and for a brief second the chains vanished. The cub's heart surged with strength. Together they struck. The soldier's rifle barked fire. The cub's claws slashed with fury. The executioner fell in pieces upon the sand. The crowd gasped. Billions watching across the galaxy saw it clearly. Humanity had not abandoned the predator. They had come for him, but the battle was only beginning. Imperial guards poured into the arena, thousands of armored soldiers storming the sands. Human strike teams were outnumbered, fighting fiercely but surrounded. Above, Admiral Reyes's fleet burst from hyperspace. Human warships appeared in orbit of the Emperor's throne world, cannons blazing. Dreadnoughts and carriers formed a spearhead, punching through planetary defenses. The sky over the arena lit with fire as fleets clashed. Inside, the cub tore the shackles from his arms. The chains shattered. His roar shook the city. The crowd, once certain of his death, now stood divided. Some screamed in fear. Others cheered wildly, swept away by the sight of rebellion against the Empire. The Emperor's voice cut through the chaos, filled with rage. Kill them all. Burn the humans. Leave nothing alive. The cub stood at the center of the arena, blood dripping from his claws, fire reflecting in his eyes. Around him, human soldiers formed a circle, holding the line against waves of enemies. The soldier who had raised him stood at his side, back to back. Above, explosions rained down. Ships fell burning from the skies. The throne world itself shook with the fury of war. The cub lifted his head and roared once more, louder than before, shaking the walls of the Empire's arena. For billions across the galaxy, watching from afar, a new truth burned in their minds. The predator was no longer a monster. He was a symbol, and symbols cannot be killed. The Emperor's throne world burned. Above the planet, fleets clashed in chaos. Human warships dove through fire, their cannons tearing into Imperial dreadnoughts. Beams of light cut the void, explosions turning the sky into a storm of fire and broken steel. On the ground, the arena of judgment had become a battlefield. Human strike teams held their ground, rifles blazing, fighting wave after wave of Imperial soldiers. Smoke filled the sands. Screams and roars mingled in the air, and at the heart of it stood Velkar, once a predator cub, now a warrior fully grown. His chains were broken. His claws dripped with blood. His voice thundered across the arena. I am no beast. I am Velkar, raised by humanity. And today, the Empire falls. The crowd trembled. Billions watching across the galaxy saw it. The predator standing shoulder to shoulder with human soldiers. Not as a slave, not as a monster, but as family. A symbol of defiance. A symbol of hope. The Emperor rose from his throne, his cloak burning from falling embers. His voice cut across the battlefield like a blade. Enough, you are nothing. You are prey. You will die screaming at my feet. From hidden vaults beneath the arena, the Emperor unleashed his champion. A colossal war beast, armored in steel plates chained with shock collars. The monster's roar shook the city as it was released, towering over the sands. The cub, no, the warrior, stood tall. He did not flinch. His eyes locked with the beast's, and he knew what must be done. The soldier who had raised him gripped his rifle. Velkar, you can't fight that thing alone. Velkar's fangs flashed in a fierce grin. I am never alone. Humanity fights with me. The beast charged, chains snapping. Its claws tore trenches in the sand. Velkar roared and met it head-on. The impact shook the arena, stone and steel crumbling. The two predators clashed, tooth against claw, fury against fury. Human soldiers covered him, blasting Imperial troops who tried to interfere. Admiral Reyes's voice rang out over comms. All units focus fire on the Emperor's guard. By Velkar time, the warrior and the beast wrestled, slamming each other into shattered pillars. The beast's jaws snapped shut, inches from Velkar's throat. With a surge of strength, Velkar drove his claws into the monster's chest, ripping through steel plates, tearing out the core that powered its augmentations. The beast collapsed, shuddering, and fell silent. The arena erupted. Cheers and screams, chaos. Across the galaxy, billions watching saw it live. the predator raised by humans had slain the Emperor's greatest weapon. Velkar raised his claws to the sky, his voice a roar that carried into every broadcast. No more chains, no more fear. Humanity and I stand together. The soldiers cheered. The people watching on distant worlds whispered in awe. Even in the alien council chambers, ambassadors watched in silence, their faces pale. For the first time, the galaxy saw the Empire bleed. The Emperor's face twisted with rage. He screamed orders, summoning more fleets, demanding the extermination of the humans and their predator. But it was too late. The tide had turned. Human fleets broke through orbital defenses. Drop pods rained down, carrying reinforcements. Across the city, enslaved species began to rise up, inspired by what they had seen. The symbol of Velkar's roar had ignited rebellion in every corner of the throne world. The Emperor realized too late what humanity had done. They had not just saved the predator, they had planted the seed of defiance in billions of hearts. In the chaos, Velkar stood at the center of the arena, the soldier who had raised him at his side. The two shared a look. No words were needed. They were family. Above, the Emperor's palace tower shook as human bombardment struck. Fire engulfed the skyline. The throne of the Empire cracked. Velkar raised a broken chain high for the cameras to see. His words echoed into the galaxy. You called me monster. You called me weapon, but humanity called me son. And today, we are free. The crowd roared, not in hatred, but in awe. The broadcast spread across the stars. Whole worlds erupted in rebellion. The Empire's rule, once unshakable, now trembled. On Earth, people cheered and wept. Children shouted Velkar's name. The predator who had once been feared was now celebrated as humanity's champion. And in the alien council chamber, silence filled the hall. Representatives stared at the screens, faces pale. One whispered the words all of them feared. If humanity can tame a predator, if humanity can turn it into this, then nothing will stop them. The galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had risen, not as prey, not as victims, but as defiance itself. And beside them, their predator sun roared into the burning skies, a promise to all who would challenge them. Humanity was here to stay.